Mobile Service Monday. We're here again this Monday talking about mobile service, and I'm excited because we have a guest here on our show. John, thank you for being on our show today.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's a great pleasure to be here today, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Man, I'm always excited to have different people on the show, and I know you've been in mobile a long time, and I know we've talked back and forth over the couple years, but I know you're a very busy guy and you're growing mobile service, and it's been cool to try to reconnect and find out you know really what do you do and what got you into mobile service. So let's start with that.
Okay, well, this is a good story, and actually, well, to me, it's interesting to me. So I was in retail for about 30 years, large stores. I was at the Ford store for 18 years, Cadillac 2 years, BMW 2 years, and Kia at the end. But FOD, service manager, etc. And I got, as you would know, you get pretty burned out after a while. 30 years is a long time, you know. And I always tell people it's a young person's game. So, and the money's good now. It's better than ever than it's been in retail. So make your money now, right? Because then you get to be in your 60s like me. You're like, okay, well, I think I'm all done with this. But 2020 rolls around. I decided that I didn't enjoy the daily grind anymore. And I tell my dealers this all the time. Hats off to you because it's a grind. You and I both know it, you know. And I had a mutual friend that we know. You probably remember Al Longo from Ford Mobile Service.
Yeah.
He called on your story. He was my boss. He approached me in 2020 and he says, "Hey, I'm getting into Ford Mobile Service. Would you be interested in being a trainer?" And I said, "Mobile service? That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard." I literally told him that. I said, "I can't. Customers don't want it. I can't make money on oil changes back at the shop. I'm gonna have an oil spill. It's a terrible idea." And then in my next breath, I'm like, "Well, I don't really feel like getting back in the store again. So when do we start?" You know. And what I learned, and not to go deep into a rabbit hole, but I literally do a talk when I do a workshop or and also in my magazine, I talk about dumbest ideas ever. And I talk about the common misconceptions about what people think about mobile. And then once they get educated, and I know you know this because you're a pro, you find out all the collateral benefits to mobile, what I call beyond the 8.5 by 11. You can't just measure mobile by what's on your dock. Fair
Yeah.
to say?
Oh yeah.
I
Complete.
mean, yeah, you got loaner expense reduction, you got car wash expense reduction, you got aging special order parts you can take care of, recapturing inactive VINs, recalls. I'm preaching to the choir here, but
Yeah.
once you look at the totality of it and the impact of it, it's like this is a must, you know. And I gradually went from this is the dumbest idea ever to everybody should be doing this. So, but anyway, I was on the Ford team for 2 years. I was with a vendor called Jackson Dawson out of Detroit. We had the contract, and about halfway through the second year, they had a contest. Ford did, and they were giving away some pretty big prizes. And even with a five-figure prize, more than half the dealers were not doing anything. They had a van, and they did zero repair orders during the contest period. And I just said to myself, and this is no knock on Ford because Ford's done a great job, but it wasn't really working. And I said to myself, there's got to be a next level of service. There's got to be a next level of education, and that's how the name of my company was born. I'm like, it's got to be better than this, you know.
Yeah.
So I decided to start working on my own company, and then kind of fortuitously, in November we found out we were losing the contract to MSX, and of course, you know, MSX has the contract with Ford now. But it actually worked good for me because I was planning on leaving, and I kind of started to feel like a double agent, you know. Hey, you know, I know I'm leaving. So anyway, long story short, I started my company in January 2022, Mobile Next Level, and we started immediately designing mobile software because there wasn't any in the space.
Yeah.
Not to be name dropping, but Spiffy was still mainly in the aftermarket. I don't even know I'm not sure what Kirby was doing yet. You'll probably edit all this out, but there
No,
really
you're
was.
good.
They both have good software, just for the record. So let me just state that I'm not knocking those guys. But I was literally the first year, I was the Lone Ranger. I was it. I was the only guy with mobile service software for dealers. Of course, it was glitchy as can be, and it took me 2 years to get the bugs out of it. And by the time I got the bugs out of it, Spiffy and Kirby came along, and the rest is kind of history. But my whole thing with mobile is that, and I know you're the same way, you're very innovative. What's better than this? What's next? How can we make this better? And that's why I left and started my own company, because I said, I think we can do better training. Okay, there's no software. I think we need to put software together. And then eventually I ended up in upfitting. And I will tell you this, Jeremy, I had no intentions of getting into upfitting either. I had no intentions. But I was going to these workshops. I was leading these workshops talking about, upfitting and stuff, how you need to get a van. And I didn't have a van company. And then after the sessions, these dealers would be like, that van took me 6 months to get, and blah, blah. They were all mad, And I said, there's got to be a better way, man.
Yeah.
So we worked on the Rapid Fit, and we worked on a plan we can bust out a van in less than 30 days, and we do them on property. And I know you guys do your own vans, but we can do them on site at the dealership. And dealers like the transparency. We always talk about transparency, right? Oh, yeah. Everything's transparency these days. It's like, I wish I had $1 for every time I heard the word.
Well, if you go back, everything we do in mobile is 100% transparency.
Right, but you're right, 100%. Here's the irony in that. As dealers, we're not getting transparency from the upfit companies.
Yeah.
We're sending our van across the country to a black hole, and 3 to 6 months later, it's coming back.
Yeah.
Where's the transparency in that? So what I decided to do was I'm going to do them on site, and I'm provide mobile service for mobile service dealers. So anyway, that's my rant.
That's pretty cool, though. It is pretty cool, because your beginning in mobile sounded like mine, because I was an operations director at a dealership, and I was there for 20 years, and it just got to the point. It's like, I needed to change. I needed a hard reset. I started as a technician, and and luckily the owner saw something in me, and I got promoted. But I was just looking for something different. You couldn't really put your finger on it. And Ed Roberts had the same conversation your guy had with you. He said, what do you think about moving down to Florida, starting mobile service? I was like, starting what?
Yeah. Mobile service? Dumbest idea ever, right?
I was like, I don't know. And it's like, I'll come down and talk to you about it a little bit. And I did. And I was like, they're serious about this. They went and purchased all these vans. And the one thing that sold me on it is like, nobody knows how to launch 46 vans. And I was like,
I still don't. So
I don't either.
When you figure it out, tell me, because that's a lot of vans.
We're finding new stuff every day, but I love the challenge, because they're like what you started off. There's really no playbook.
No, in fact, Ford told us in training when we went to Detroit, they pretty much told us, this is a whiteboard project. You're going to find out how to do this in the field.
Yeah.
We had a guidebook, but it was based on theory only. There was no practical real world experience. But you just brought up something really good that I want to touch on. When you've been in the car business, especially in fixed ops, and I was an FOD and a service manager, you're going to get your butt kicked every day. Let's face it. You are. And you're grinding the same thing every day. ELR, gross profit percentage, CSI. And when you get to be like long of tooth like I am, you get tired of taking the hill. And I couldn't get excited about it anymore. And I think you'll agree with me on this, because I'm echoing your point. It's hard to be in the arena when you don't have the passion anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't have the passion. You're a dead man walking in the car business if you're not passionate.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get excited about it anymore. And once I learned about mobile, I'm like, this is my first chance to do something that's really new. The last thing that was really new was Motorcraft Fast Lube for me. That's how long I've been in the business. It was like in the 80s or the 90s. That's the first innovation was 15-minute oil change or 30 at a dealership, which is, and then loaners and stuff. But I got burned out, and I had to find something that I really could be passionate about again. And I fell back in love with the car business because of it.
It did. And at my 2-year anniversary, I emailed Bo, Letty, and Ed a letter, because I was at that same point. It's like, almost thanking them for giving me a fresh start because
Yeah.
there was no guidelines, and fortunate Bozart's an amazing company, so they didn't put me in a box. They says, hey, we know you're going to need resources to figure this out. Just
Yeah.
go do it, and that's what we
Yeah.
did. We failed fast and learned a lot of stuff, and that's when I met you in the beginning of this, probably
Yeah.
over 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and when we first met, I didn't know what I needed. I was like, I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
I'm running on a prayer and a spreadsheet, and
Right.
we was able to do that up to about 26 vans. And it's like, when my team gets aggravated with software, I'll bring that old spreadsheet back. It's like, listen, don't make me
Yeah.
bring this spreadsheet.
Hey, I mean, and this is from a guy who sells software for a living. There are still a lot of dealers on a Google spreadsheet. I
Yeah,
mean, and it works for them. I mean, I say this all the time. Hey, your spreadsheet got you to here, but it's going to keep you here.
yeah,
You got to here, but now if you want to go here, you got to be a little bit more efficient. And I don't knock anybody using a spreadsheet. I think if you really want to grow, this, you can't juggle 26 or 46 vans on a Google spreadsheet. You just can't do
yeah,
it.
yeah. You save a lot of time once you get it, and here's the cool thing is, and I will say, you pioneered the software because you were the only one, and then everybody else kind of jumped on board, right after
With a
you
lot
got
more
all your
money.
stuff. Yeah,
And a lot more marketing firepower. It was, and I'll just say this, and I don't want to step on your conversation. It was tough for me to be the first guy in the arena and then see bigger guys come in after me. That I had to make peace with that, and I have made peace with it. But
yeah.
it took me a couple of years to get my head around that.
Yeah. It does. And it's almost like anything else. It's like you had the idea and but you know what? You definitely opened the door on that piece of it because you
Yeah,
saw it before anybody else really saw it. And that's the cool thing. And going back, because we've been pushing real hard for a little over 2 years now. We started with like 7 vans and now we have the full fleet on there.
sure.
And it's just amazing to see. 2 years ago, everybody thought I was crazy.
Hmm.
People in North Carolina
Well,
said,
I still
"You're
think you're
going to
crazy
leave?"
for the record.
Do
Just
what?
for the record, you still are. You are.
Good, good. I'm glad. Well, it's
Ed's
almost
crazy
like,
too, by the way.
yeah, yeah. You almost got laughed out of North Carolina. It's like you're going to leave your job to do what?
Yeah.
But I will tell you, they're not laughing now.
I
So,
bet they're not laughing. I bet they're not.
but it's been but mobile has. I like hearing your story because I understand exactly where you're coming from. It's like mobile, and
Yeah.
then you think of all the bad things that could happen, go wrong, and we have a lot of dealerships come and they come and try to find the magic bullet, and there is none. They just look at the process, and it's like they realize it's like we're really overthinking this. It's like, yeah, you are. It's not
Yeah.
that complicated.
Yeah. They think about everything that can go wrong, but a lot of stuff goes wrong in the shop too.
Yes.
Well, we can have an oil spill. Someone could slip. Let me tell you something. In 30 years, I've had plenty of slip and fall technicians.
Yeah.
Some accidentally and some on purpose. That's going to happen in the shop too. But I think you're really super blessed to be with an organization like Bozard because as there's more and more consolidation, it's tougher and tougher to have a good family-owned business that you have the freedom. They trust you. They trust your instincts and your creativity, and I think that's huge, man.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, if you work for one of the big public companies, you wouldn't have that freedom. So, you
Yeah.
you can get her done.
It's definitely been a blessing to work with the Bozars and to see this thing grow.
Yeah.
Now you're out and about seeing a lot of different dealerships. I have a mastermind group, so I get a lot of feedback and I talk to a lot of people across it. But from where you're sitting at, you're probably seeing it from a totally different angle. So what kind of trends or what kind of new stuff are you seeing out there?
Well, it's interesting because every OEM's in a different position. I've had a lot of conversations with OEMs since 2020 or 2022, excuse me, once I started working on for myself. And the appetite seems to kind of ebb and flow. I do a lot of work with Toyota and Lexus, but it's not really mobile work. it's fixed ops, workshops and stuff, but their appetite. Toyota's just now starting to get excited about mobile a little bit. I just did a van for a little dealer in Alabama, Singing River Toyota, and they're all jazzed about it. But Toyota, TMNA, I guess it is, Toyota Motors National North America, they're not super excited. BMW got a pretty good start, and they kind of slowed down a little bit. Mercedes is, as you know, I do a lot with them. They're probably the second largest behind Ford as far as the number of active units and dealers, even though it's obviously far less than Ford. Nobody's even in the same stratosphere with Ford. But it seems to me like it's very organic now. I know that with Hyundai and GM just coming on, and Stellantis just coming on with programs, the top-down approach, the dealers the uptake is not as quick as I think the OEMs are expecting. You know how it goes. I mean, when I started with Ford in 2020, we had 47 active mobile dealers. When I left 2 years later, we only had 200 and some. And that was in 2021, at the end of 2021. So it takes a long time to grow those networks, because these dealers, they're still not bought in. And I tell them all the time, I said, do you think that Amazon's going away? Do you think that DoorDash is going away? Do you think people 5 years from now are going to be less inclined to want mobile service? No. I mean, look at our kids. My kid spends $20 on a McDonald's value meal at 2:00 in the morning or whenever she can get one delivered to the house. I mean, she thinks nothing of it. This generation doesn't want to engage like the old baby boomers did. We didn't mind mixing it up and talking to people and the new. But anyway, I don't think I really answered your question. Everybody's in a different spot, and it seems like their temperature goes up and down if budgets get tight, because especially the tariffs have kind of triggered a little bit of a cool down. You see them kind of get excited and they want to do some incentives for the dealers, and then they'll kind of back off of it.